Hello and welcome. This is the final lesson in this course, and in this video we will talk about the skill of writing about categories and groups. So sometimes in IELTS you are asked to talk about different categories, surveys, groups, and let me show you an example of a graph like this. So this chart over here shows the percentage of men and women working full-time in several occupational categories in Australia. So talking about categories, we have a number of occupational categories here. Professionals, managers, and so on. Apart from that, we have men and women. And men and women are obviously social categories. Let's have a look at another graph. This is also a bar chart, and this bar chart shows the proportions of people with normal and excess weight in England. So here we are dealing with a number of age groups. So how to write about categories and groups? This is exactly the focus of this lesson. Okay. Let's continue with the graph about men and women employed full-time. Here at the screen you can see the introductory phrase, which is actually the paraphrase of the topic. So the bar chart compares the proportions of Australian male and female workers employed in 7 categories as of 2016. Next, you see the overview. So the overview consists of 2 sentences, and let's actually talk about the overview. So overview, as you already know, includes 2-3 main features about the graph. If we look at this graph, we will see that we have 7 occupational categories, and in almost all of them there are more men than women. So this information will go to the first sentence of the overview. Overall, the data confirms that men outnumbered women in all areas except and 2 exceptions. What else can we see? I always tell you to pay attention to minimums and maximums, and if we pay attention to this graph, we will see that in this group over here, the skilled workers, the difference between the number of men and women is striking. It's the biggest difference. So this will be the maximum for this graph, and this piece of information will make the second sentence of the overview. Furthermore, skilled workers was demonstrated to be the category with by far the highest discrepancy. So again, the overview has 2 key features, and these key features will also be the logic for splitting our report into 2 paragraphs. So in the first body paragraph, we will talk about occupational categories with more men than women. And in the second body paragraph, we will talk about groups with more women. It will be only 2 groups. All right, the graph is about employees, right? Men and women working full-time in several occupational categories. So which synonyms of the word work can we use? So work can be used as a verb, of course. And we can use phrases like, for example, work full-time. We can also use the noun, a worker. And for example, we can say a female worker or a male worker. Another word that we can use to talk about the topic of work is employ. Employ can be used as a verb, and the meaning is hire. Be employed is the passive form of this verb. Employee is a noun, so we can say a male employee or a female employee. We also can use phrases which I mentioned here. So have a job, hold a position, or have, for example, managerial roles. Another possible options that can be used is be involved. Be involved means like be a part of something. Now at the screen you can see a variety of synonyms that I have used in this report. All of them are about work and employees. Okay, next let's talk about synonyms for man and woman. Okay, so we can use nouns a male and a female. We can use these words as adjectives as well, like a male worker or a female employee. We can also use this phrase, a gender ratio, which is the number of males and females. So this graph over here is actually about gender ratio in several occupational categories. A term that can be very useful in these situations is counterpart. A term that can be really useful in such situations is a counterpart. So a counterpart is someone or something that is the equivalent to or has the same features, functions, and or characteristics as someone or something else. In other words, for example, here we are talking employees, and we are talking male employees and female employees. So if I want to use the word counterpart, I can say male employees and their female counterparts. So if I don't want to say the word employees, I can replace it with the word counterparts. The examples of counterparts is obviously men and women, or younger people and older people, people of the same position but in different places can also be counterparts, like here. The President of India will meet his Chinese counterpart. So as you can guess, counterpart means president here. So the President of India will meet the President of China. In other words, the President of India will meet his Chinese counterpart. Another example is teenagers are more used to technologies than their older counterparts. And for example, here, British farmers and their foreign counterparts will meet at the exhibition. So counterpart is a good option if you don't want to repeat the same words. Here you can see different variations, different options of the word male and female. And let's have a look at how I have used the word counterpart. So the largest difference in the gender ratio, almost 10%, can be seen in the skilled workers category, where 11.1% of male workers versus only 3.1% of their female counterparts were employed. You do remember that when you're writing a report, you're supposed to provide comparisons. And when you compare things, you mention things which are similar or different. So how can we talk about difference if, for example, we're talking about occupational categories and the number of men and women employed in these categories? So now at the screen you can see a few options. Let's go through them together. We can go with a phrase like this. So more men than women work in, for example, sales. We can use the verb outnumber, like men outnumber women, meaning there are more men than women. We can also go with a very nice phrase for this situation. Women are underrepresented. It sounds really sophisticated to my taste. Another term for the word difference is discrepancy, inequality, here we go, the difference, and imbalance. They all are synonyms, so you can use them in similar situations. Another way to show the difference is to use the word versus, and it is usually abbreviated to VS. So 3% versus 10%. Another way is to use the phrase as opposed to. Sounds really good. 3% as opposed to 10%. And finally, the word compared to will also show this idea of difference. And now let's have a look at some of these options in the report. We are moving on to the second graph, and this is also a bar chart. So here we will talk about proportions or percentages of people with normal and excess weight in England in 2019. Here's the report, and the focus of this video is how we can talk about different groups. And quite often surveys involve different age groups. So how can we describe them? Well, you can see a few options here. For example, people between 16 and 24, people aged 16-24 with a dash like this, people aged 16 to 24, people in 16-24 age group or age category, and people aged 75 and over for categories like this, 75 plus. Here we have 75 plus. And of course, another way to add some variety, to paraphrase, is to change the word people to an appropriate word. Like here we have a few options: men and women, adults in 16-24 age group, or young older adults, seniors, children, teenagers, minors, and also the word those. For example, those aged 75 and over. And let's have a look how I have used them in the report. They're highlighted in green. This graph is also describing weight groups. So as long as we're talking about categories and groups, let's also talk about these kind of groups. So when we talk about weight groups, we can talk about obese people. Obese means like very big people, meaning that they have a lot of extra weight. So obese is an adjective here. Obesity is a noun, and we can say people with obesity. Obesity is actually a disease, and it significantly decreases the quality of life. We can go with overweight people, overweight being an adjective here. Or we can say people with overweight, and in this case, overweight is a noun. Another option is to say people with excess weight. Excess means more than enough in a negative way here. And when we refer to normal weight, the green in our graph, we can say people with normal weight or people with healthy weight. And again, we don't have to use word people all the time. We can replace it with men and women, adults, individuals, young, older adults, seniors, children, and those. Here in blue, you can see different synonyms that I have used to describe the weight groups. There are two body paragraphs in this report, and the first body paragraph deals with people aged 45 to 75, whereas the final body paragraph is about people aged 16 to 44. Why is that? Well, if we look at these age groups to the right, people 45 and over, we can see that the number of obese people and people with overweight is higher, actually significantly higher compared to these three groups of people. So this is why I have split my report like this. And actually, this information is also the foundation of the overview. Overall, all age groups from 45 upwards, tended to be overweight and obese, whereas adults aged 16-24 were the least prone to have excess weight. So here we have two key features. Let's have a look at the introduction. As I was paraphrasing the topic, I have used this phrase here. So the bar chart compares weight levels of adults falling into 7 age groups. Fall into a category or a group means belong to a group. And this is a target vocabulary for this lesson. Yeah, the skill dealing with categories and groups. The first body paragraph is next in focus. Here we are dealing with some kind of survey, right, or research. And when we want to present the data, in this case, percentages, we can use phrases like this. Was recorded, were reported. The highest share of overweight people, 45%, was recorded among seniors. Were reported has the same meaning. Apart from these phrases, we can also use these phrases like here. It can be seen, or the survey estimates that, the survey found that, and the data estimates that. So these are some transitional phrases, and if you need them in your report, go ahead and use them. I want to draw your attention to the word among. Some people make a mistake here, and instead of among, they say between. Well, between is normally when we refer to something two people, two groups, two countries. And if it's more than two, then we will go with among. So among is the right option in our situation. Finally, in the last paragraph, I have used two expressions that I would like to discuss with you. So younger adults in England were less prone to excess weight. And a synonym of this phrase is here in the last sentence. The adult age group least likely to be obese. So here you can see 4 synonyms. Be prone to something, be likely to be, tend to be, and have a tendency to be. As I said, they're all synonyms, and the meaning is like have a tendency. Yeah, tend to be. In graphs that give results of some surveys, these phrases are very useful. And this is how I have used these phrases in the report. As you can see, I have used 4 different phrases which have pretty much the same meaning. Throughout this course, I have been telling you about the importance of making comparisons, right? Relevant comparisons. So also in this report, I have made a few comparisons. Let's have a look at them. So the highest share. Yeah, this is a superlative adjective, and it does show some comparison. Similarly is a linking word. We use it when we want to show some similar numbers, trends, phenomena. You got it. Compared to is another linking word to compare. Less, the same shares, also shows the idea of comparison. Was higher, whereas, to show some contrast. And least likely is also the superlative adjective. Do keep in mind that relevant comparisons is always a good idea for the task achievement. So now you know how to write about graphs, which talk about surveys, questionnaires, and feature certain categories and groups. And this is the final video in this course. We have done a really good job together, and now you're more prepared to nail your writing task 1 in IELTS. Good luck!